So welcome to our council meeting for the 25th of February 2026. I'll get Dave to open with the Karakia. Thanks, Dave.
Good morning, everyone. Whakatakati hau ki te uru, whakatakati hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, ki mā taratara ki tai, e he aka ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauriora.
Thank you, Dave. Apologies. The one that's listed on the board is now incorrect because I do see Councillor Holmes online. So welcome, Keith.
Thank you for that.
Are there any other apologies? Doesn't look like it. So we'll move on to confirmation of the agenda. So the meeting may sit longer than 2 hours, which is a pretty safe bet, and it may continue longer than 6 hours. You will be aware that we do have 2 reserve days to work through this, as this is the meeting that will cover the annual plan. So I'm hoping that potentially we can get through it all today, but we'll just see how that rolls. So a mover for the confirmation. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Thank you, Karakia. All those in favour? Opposed? So carried. Are there any disclosures of interest for any of the items on the agenda today?
Yes.
Liz?
Yeah, thank you. I just did want to disclose my ongoing work with Corbicula, the gold clam at Lake Karapiro, which is on page 251 of our agenda today under the biosecurity and biodiversity. Thanks.
And Dave has noted that. Thank you. Right, we now move on to confirmation of minutes. I'll just get Dave to touch on the process that we work through, as this is our first council meeting that minutes from other committees have come to, just so all councillors have an understanding of how we receive minutes into the main council meeting, and then as a bit of an outline of a process that we can use going forward if necessary. Thank you, Dave.
Good morning, everyone. The minutes that we have before us today, we will put separately this time around. We have 4 sets of minutes. We will be aiming to confirm the minutes of the previous council meeting, and then we will be looking to receive the minutes of the Regional Transport Committee, Future Proof and Civil Defence. It is worth noting that it has been standard practice here at Council that we confirm minutes of our standing committees here at Council, because all of the members on those committees sit around this table, and that some of the discretionary committees where we have external members, those minutes go back to the committee to be confirmed. Receiving or confirming a set of minutes does not necessarily mean that you agree with the content of the minutes. It also doesn't mean that you are ratifying any of the decisions or recommendations that may be made. There's no recommendations today before us from those committees. In the case where we do get a recommendation from a committee, we put those as separate resolutions. It does not form part of receiving or confirming the minutes. Has anyone got any questions?
Thanks for that explanation, Dave. So we'll move on to the first set of minutes coming to us for receiving, is the meeting of the council minutes, which was held on the 20th of November 2025. So moved by Councillor Dunbar-Smith, seconded by Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? Opposed? So carried. The next set is the Regional Transport Committee, which met on the 8th of December 2025. Is everybody happy with those minutes as they are being recorded and received by us today? And if so, if I could have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Liz. Thank you. Yeah, which wasn't me. It doesn't have to be, it's just receiving them. So I'm happy to second that. All those in favour? Opposed? So carried. Next is the Future Proof Implementation Committee meeting on December 2025. Thank you, Liz. I was at that meeting, but I will also second that. Thank you, Dave. All those in favour? Opposed? So carried. And finally, we have the Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee, which was held on the 15th of December 2025. I can have a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jennifer. All those in favour? Opposed? So carried. Right, the next item up in front of us now is the Health and Safety Report. And Mr. Brown does not appear to be in the, oh yes, yes, sorry. He's hiding in the back row. So this item is page 90 of your agenda. Over to you, Stuart.
Thanks very much. Good morning, councillors. I'll take you through a few of the key points of the report. You'll see that a timber delivery driver there was killed whilst operating his HIAB, and sadly it was known, that this was a risk. He was within range of the wires, so you'll see that the fine is fairly significant there at $330,000. And again, it kind of comes back to the hazard identification while work's being carried out, and that we do pre-work hazard identification, and also throughout the day, as it's often a dynamic environment out there, as things change. We actually have just had a recent instance when the team have been operating a chainsaw and it got snagged in a tree, and they stopped work and considered what had happened, and rather than carrying on, removed themselves from the situation and got a machine in to secure that. And as soon as they did that, the tree actually did burst apart basically, and they lost the chainsaw into the tree. But it's a great, or into the river, but it's a great example of that kind of dynamic environment that our teams are working in out there, and that safety mindset is there throughout the day, and they're assessing that as work goes. So that's a good example there. You'll see that we're well on track with our safety audits and inspections under point 6, with good progress being made against the targets. We set those up initially not that long ago, so that's why those targets are at 80% and 85%. We're likely to change that as things move on, but we're really pleased with the progress there. Just coming back, I know there was a question about lighting, and we've had a number of events through Damstra, and I'm pleased to report now that the whole building has been suitably fitted out with the correct lumens, and we now have a map that all staff can have a look at, and they can go and sit in low lighting areas if they please. So that's good that we've been able to close that out for the building. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Good to hear that lighted now. Thank you, Stu. I'll go to Ben.
Yeah, just wanted to know what works, what say health and safety work related to the flooding recently, and obviously that tree may have been something they were clearing as a result of the flood. So if you want to comment on the impact of the floods on your work.
Yeah, I guess, that we've obviously had the emergency response to that and people out. One of the key things is, we've got I think 140 odd people that are able to respond in that, and they will get called up to be able to support those events. We just had 3 people down in Otahonga. So it's really important that we have a collaborative approach to that. So there's the emergency response team that will call up, through Whisper people to be able to respond. But it's also important that the managers of those people are in the loop as well, because obviously they go out to respond over the weekend or into the evening, and that will then affect their business as usual. And when they return, it's also important that we follow our policy and guideline around, how we actually schedule those people on for shifts, to make sure that they're, working within reasonable hours. And if they do, for example, have to go to Otahonga to respond, that would take into consideration if they're traveling from Hamilton, there's a couple of hours, potentially a day extra on top of their shift. So those things are being taken into consideration. But yeah, we've had a great response from across the organisation to that. And from what I can see, the teams, the directors and the managers have all been very supportive of people coming back and allowing them their proper breaks to come back to their business as usual. So it's been good, and I know that the civil defence have, commended our support.
Thanks for that, Stu. I'll just come to Chris for a comment.
Thank you, through Chair. I think the question was, do we have people out chainsawing in the middle of the flood, which is where that incident might have occurred. So my understanding is no, that's not the case. We probably do an assessment first and go into recovery mode. But Stu, I don't think we had people out responding in the incident.
No, that's right. Yeah. And another good thing you'll have seen has been the automation. So, at the pump stations, we've got apps basically that can run those now. So we actually don't need people physically there. We're able to send them to areas that they can be, better suited to use their time, I guess. Historically, we haven't had that remote access to those. So people have had to go out to check on that station and see how it's working and turn the pumps on and off. But with the kind of real-time monitoring now, we can do that all remotely. And it's a much more effective use of time and resource to be able to address things as they're needed.
Thanks, Stu. Jennifer.
Thanks, Stu. Great report. 3 quick questions. One was, will we also make a submission on that bill that is proposed? The second one was, for the site walkarounds, great to have the SLT involved now as well. Do you have any target annual? Like, I noticed you were reporting the number you did, but I was wondering if the targets changed with the recent people. And the third one was, it's a bit safer with being able to do more remote work with the pump stations not requiring visit. Are there any other pump stations where we would see that benefit?
Yep, no, great questions. Firstly, the NZISM, Marie's well hooked into that. They've got, I think, 3,200 members, and she will be supporting, as part of that group. So we'll have involvement through that. Regarding the pump stations, we look to automate as we can. It's obviously there's a schedule of work and budget and everything else, and we will continue to work through that.
So there are opportunities.
There are, yes, there are, which is great. And the third question
that was do you have targets for the walkarounds?
Yes, we do. We do. Yep. You'll remember the Safe Plus audit that came through. So we have we initially had a target of 12 for the executive per annum. So we have doubled that, and also the whole SLT are now involved in all being part of that, through the year. So yeah, we've significantly increased the assurance work, which is fantastic.
Good to see it embedding. Thanks.
Thanks. Come to Tipper online. Morning, Tipper.
Morning, councillors. Thank you for the report. Mine is what PCBU reporting should we expect during a surge event. That's directly of the report. And then back through you, Chris, noting that in this one, long as staff are well cared for through the event, etc. But we've heard stress in other directorates around the availability of qualified people during events. So if we could not lose that point, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Great points. And we have been working with, the incident response team and their resourcing there and listening to them as they progress through. I know that they're bringing our report to ELT after the events. Obviously now is the time to respond and deal with that. And we will support them as best we can. I appreciate that people are tired. I was over at the Civil Defence building and there's a few people ready for a rest now, which is understandable. But I think once we get through that, it'll be good to take stock. And I know that Greg has set up an IMT within ICM to review that. But we'll look forward to receiving, the data after the event so that we can consider that and consider what we may need to do additionally as an executive or not, depending on how things have gone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Robbie.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My question is about that. We had the emergency response team come and do papers to us last week, and I'd like actually some data stating where most of those response emergency staff are coming out of, what directorate, because what I understand is that puts a huge amount of stress on ICM because the majority of those emergency response staff are coming out of roles already in roles that are overworked or in a high workload area, and yet they're having to be taken off that workload to go into emergency response. So I'd actually like something to come back at how we're going to populate emergency response out of other directorates, because it's putting too great a workload on ICM. And that came out of that. There's only like 30 or 40% of staff trained in that area, the paper the other day, I think.
Yeah,
And so I think it needs to be that scope needs to have more pressure put in the other directorates of filling those roles than just ICM. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes any sense?
No, it makes good sense. And I think we have, like I said earlier, 140 people that are able to respond through that whisper. The good news is that we've had enough people respond, to be able to deal with the incident that we've got in front of us. But I appreciate what you're saying there around, that is heavily dominated from the ICM directorate. It is good, however, that, across the directorates, people are trained. There is a reasonably level playing field as far as directorate size and percentage of people trained. And I guess, as things progress, we'll look to increase that. But yeah, we constantly look at that as an executive, and we have reporting on that. And that's something that we're very aware of.
Well, we got some roles in ICM that are really high stressful roles, and you're pulling them out, leaving that role vacant while they're taking on another role, and then they're still coming back to that other role again. So I just think that gap needs to be filled in way more.
Yeah.
Just a couple more comments on that. So understand it, ELT's had that discussion. We had a discussion where we're going to set up an organisation-wide incident management team for the current events, plural. And the decision was to keep it that in ICM at the moment. Ironically, there was there was an exercise planned for ELT for this week to set up such a thing in response, but because of the situation that occurred last week, we put that to the side while we do it. But we are conscious that there are that across the organisation we need a number of trained people for different types of roles. I think we've got 140 people trained, but a lot of them are only at level 1, and some of we need people at the higher levels of training. With staff turnover, it's always a challenge, but we're very conscious of it. And what you've said is that you'd like to see a bit more of that and have some confidence of what's happening internally.
Okay.
But thanks for that. I've got a couple of questions. Psychological effects of work. It's not a description I don't think I've seen in the past 3 or 4 years. So
Yes.
Just wonder.
Yeah, well picked up. Not often you see that. So that has come through, and we have updated our policy on overspeeds. So for speeding, and we've been just addressing that. And as part of that, people have been being notified for their overspeeds via email, and it's caused some concern. So we've just been working through that and bedding that into the organisation as a new way of working and a new way of notifying people. And some people have found that stressful.
Okay. I've had an issue raised with me on pump shed access and who has keys and stuff like that, and from the health and safety side of things, and maybe that's something Greg can comment on. But just want to understand our policy and positioning on people that aren't staff having access to our pump sheds, and the inherent dangers that may involve.
Yeah, so I guess historically, we have shared access with landowners over the decades that the scheme has been in place. Our priority at the moment is to ensure that we only have staff access to our pump stations, but I understand there are instances out there where keys are made available to others, so that's something that we need to actively manage. Or than saying that within our pump stations themselves, we've recently gone through a process to ensure that within those pump stations they are safe. So things like making sure that we have our switchboard cabinets appropriately secured, guarding around moving parts, etc. Work has been done, and also identification of confined spaces within those sheds. We have done work to ensure that, regardless of who goes within those sheds, that they are entering a safe environment.
So maybe that's something that can be, the progress of that can be reported back through ICM, just to give councillors confidence in that space. My other one, Stu, would be just looking at all the events that have happened and over the last few years, Coromandel included, etc. What are our capabilities around, having these regional offices and that set up for emergency? So I'm like emergency power, emergency comms, things like that. Are we investing into that space? I know in my area there's a new building being built, so do we have the ability to just plug a generator into it, into that space? Is that part of our thinking and part of our design going forward? Just so we've got that preparedness across the region, not just in this facility.
Yeah. As far as I understand, and feel free to correct me, I don't believe that we are set up in those remote office or regional offices, I should say. I don't believe that we have generators, for example, or Starlink packs, or those types of things. So yeah.
Here's your mic if you want to talk. Thanks, Robbie.
No. Just external access to power or to power up the site, if it's solar panel or generators or whatever.
Yeah.
So again, maybe an action point for ICM to have a look at that, Greg, in that space.
So
I think I'm not talking for all councillors, but I think it is an importance that it gives us that ability to use those regional assets that we have in times of emergency. I know Coromandel, we lost the power in Gabriel for 3 days. So there's that sort of thing going on.
Just to add to that, like Fonterra's new milk supply, that you cannot bring in a new milk supply without a generator on your property.
Yeah, but we're not going to set up in a cow shed.
No, but I mean, it's for that's for the well-being of that farm. So I'm talking about the well-being of our office. It should have similar principles, is what I'm getting to.
Thank you.
So, look, that's something that we'd need to consider from a property and facilities point of view. Are we going to set up emergency centres in our buildings when there's emergency centres set up in like Thames Coromandel, but the district council? I'm also conscious that a number of staff who work in areas like that, and including as we had in the Otahanga and Pirongia floods recently, actually impacted. We don't actually want them out travelling during that sort of time, and they often work from home and then get out to start doing the assessment. So we just need to think through what it is. I think we'll take that point because it's a really good one, what we'd want the property to be used for, and go from there for how it should be equipped. But obviously in the Coromandel, which is our area, the building's been built now, so
certainly don't want to outweigh Fonterra.
Ben.
Oh, sorry, I was just picking up on psychological effects of work. So as I understand it, someone is driving in a work vehicle driving too fast, and when they send an email telling them they're driving too fast, they have a psychological effect. I mean, if they're called into someone's office and disciplined, does they have a psychological effect at work as well? It's like what?
I think we're getting down into operations, Ben. Let's leave the staff to deal with that. It may be at director level, who knows? So, Noel.
Yeah, coming back to a point you raised in relation to the pumps. Those pumps are on private land, and in times of emergency, if staff cannot get there, the landowners are acting. So we've had 1 or 2 instances where it was inappropriate to act. However, excuse me, I'm just concerned that if we cut all communications or ability to enter those pump sheds, that we will have a backlash from the landowners and the ratepayers. So, excuse me, and we just think about that before we go heavy-handed and say, okay, we've got this multi-million-dollar pump on your land, but you can't go anywhere near it. It's not as simple as that.
No, as I say, I raised it with Greg to come back through ICM, so I think it will be identified on a case-by-case basis. Gary Raymer.
Yes, so my question is around just getting back to where Warren was about everything about the sheds. Don't you have any sort of surveillance, so when a door is open that that it's been open? Nothing like that, but that's very simple to set up.
Yeah, it's not something that's set up widely across the the region.
because it's not hard, and I know, if we've got a telecom site in our place, and they don't always lock it, but if I open the door, someone is on the farm within 2 hours.
Yeah. So again, I think it's something that we can pick up with ICM on various site-specific stuff. But are there any other questions for Stu today? No, if I can have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Robbie. All those in favour? Opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. Right, the next item before us is the Te Huia Interregional Passenger Rail Service, end of trial review report and potential 1-year extension. This is on page 100 of your agendas. We've got Phil and James at the end of the tables to take us through this item. Thank you, Phil.
Yes, good morning, councillors, and introduce James Wellen, who's a contractor who's supporting the Te Huia work for us. You'll recall a workshop conversation in early December, which resulted in a paper that came to your December council meeting, where you resolved to send a letter of indicative support to the NZTA board, seeking their consideration of an extension of the Te Huia trial for a final or further year at a 60% enhanced financial assistance rate. The NZTA board met on the 19th of February and as has been reported, did support that extension. So the paper in front of you today is intended to enable your consideration of the Regional Council's decision on its share of the funding to extend that trial at that 60% financial assistance rate. The paper also includes an end of trial report, which was being prepared by Council to assist NZTA with its consideration of the other pathway, and they are on track to consider the future of the service at their board meeting on the 2nd of April, should you decide not to proceed with the extension of the trial. So this report includes the material that will be going to the board as part of that consideration as well. If you determine today that you do not want the trial to extend, the conversation then moves into being an annual plan conversation for us as an organisation. So there's a requirement as set out in the 2024 long-term plan that you would consult with the community on the journey from the 1st of July 2026, should you decide not to extend the trial. So happy to leave it there and take any questions.
Thank you for that, Phil. Noel, your stuff.
A number of questions. I'll just go through them. So a cost of 3203404. I've been trying to work out where that figure is made up from. So does that include the 60%, or is that on top of the 60% funding? Second question.
So let's answer them one by one,
Okay.
just so the guys can get them. So if we can reference a page number, thanks, guys. And it's just going to be easier, I believe, if we answer them one by one as we go through, because some councillors may have the same questions, so we can tick those off. So.
Okay, so through the chair, I can answer that
Thanks, James.
question. So the figure of 3203404 is essentially the net local share cost to council at 60% FAR.
Thank you.
And so that's coming from existing rates that are in place, and there's no additional. So where does that rating base come from? Is it primarily Hamilton?
So the Te Huia service didn't transition into the regional rating system.
Yeah, no, it's only buses.
So it sits out on its own. So it's funded by Hamilton ratepayers plus a small contribution from Waikato district ratepayers.
Challenge that, because I spoke with the mayor and his infrastructure chair, and they say they put nothing more into it than the stations. So they don't understand where the 3.3% is coming from that 103 million. So can we take this offline? But I meant to have this discussion before the meeting. So they don't see there's an ongoing commitment at the moment. So we need to either get the mayor on board or clarify what we're saying. So I'll take that one offline. So can you just tell me how the sequence goes from here on? And because it's a no-brainer, if the funding for the extension has been granted, yet in April, how you phrased it was, if we don't agree to extend it today, by the sounds of things, then they will make a decision about the future. So I just want to make sure we're not putting the cart before the horse. So I'm assuming that there will be support because we all supported the letter, and so therefore the extension. So the extension stays in place. Does the decision in April then come down to we will support this at the end of the trial, or is that then put off for another year for review? So can we just have clarity on the timing of everything, please?
So effectively, it's the second half of what you said. If the trial is extended, the consideration of council is via the 2027-37 long-term plan process, and the consideration from NZTA's perspective is via the Regional Land Transport Plan, National Land Transport Plan decisions, accompanied by any board decisions that they would want to make in mid-2027. So there would not be a process in April this year if you decide to extend the trial.
Sorry, just clarifying that. Those RLTPs have often been later than our decisions in the long-term plans. So can we get a commitment that they will have that decision to us in sufficient time to consider it in the long-term plan? Because I don't want to get to a situation, because later this year we're supposed to be considering whether we buy new trains. Then they've got to tell us whether they're going to make it a permanent situation. And at the same time, we've got to make an LTP decision, and we've got to have all the ducks lining up. So can we have some clarity and guarantee that we're going to have that all lining up?
I agree it is as complex today as it has been throughout this process. The agency's decision timeframes and process are theirs. We have a process through the Regional Land Transport Plan on top of our own long-term plan that we have to work through. So I can't say that the agency will be prepared to make a decision earlier than its National Land Transport Plan decision timeframes. It's possible that they might consider this issue at their board meeting prior to that, but as things stand, they would be considering all of the funding story for the region as part of that National Land Transport Fund process.
Coming back to you, thank you. Coming back to you then, Mr. Chair, we need some guarantee of the timelines, even if they are encouraged to make a decision earlier, because we cannot be left, if we're still here, with an LTP decision that we don't know whether we're going to have funding for. And if we're not got a service, we can't commit to buying trains later this year as we're told we have to. It just doesn't stack up. So we can take it offline, but those are real decisions that we have to be concerned about.
And my understanding is they are decisions that we will be looking at when we are looking at that LTP work as we work through that process. Now, I'm sure that we could approach the NZTA board to get a decision out of them at an earlier board meeting potentially for their decision around whether that train carries on as a permanent service or not. We have that ability to approach them and ask for that. So
and we must be signalling that early.
And we must be signaling that early, correct? I would agree there. And also the fact then we will have up-to-date figures after this trial extension, if that's where we get to today, which will be able to help enable that business case to go forward. So yeah, not everything you see in here, the final stuff will be relevant if the trial goes ahead. Obviously, we will have some more figures in a year's time. Yeah, Chris.
Through you, Chair. It's just a really good point that you raise, and we can raise it with NZTA when we meet with the regional partner. He can take it through their processes. But just to reiterate, so everyone's on the same page, what Phil said, this is a really complex system of transport funding that we work in, because the whole way the national land transport is funded works for an NZTA system. They haven't made it work well, segue well into a local government system. And it does make the instances like this very awkward. But we will advocate for that, whether NZTA would be prepared to change their funding decisions to say make the Huia decision ahead of the other national programs. Be soon.
Chris Hughes.
Thanks, Chair Warren. I've got a couple of questions, and depending on the answers, I might have a couple more. The first one is page 106, where the bottom of the page is net cost to council of continued service. And then you say increasing by 3.7% per year thereafter. Can you tell me how that's been calculated?
Yeah, through the chair, that's just an assumption that's been made based on historic costs of contracts for rail services. So it is an assumption. What we would need to do in any future scenario where we were either going for a permanent service would be to actually agree a cost escalation figure with the operator, which in the short term is likely to be Kiwi Rail. So it's an assumption that we feel is broadly realistic.
So there is absolutely nothing built in there for the future new rolling stock that we know is required to, if the service is to continue.
Yeah, so through the chair, the figures you see there assume that the service continues as is with the existing rolling stock. We will talk, as I believe, separately around the rolling stock business case and the options for what council may or may not want to do in terms of purchase of future trains.
If I can just jump in there, Chris, just for clarification, James, I'm sure I read in the report, but we're giving the current rolling stock lifespan a 10-year end of life.
So through the chair, yes, the situation is that Kiwi Rail have completed their safety assessments and have submitted what is called a so far as is reasonably practicable statement to NZTA as the rail regulator. My understanding is that the proposal in that so far statement is to extend the life of the existing rolling stock by 10 years.
Yeah, thank you.
However, NZTA may not agree to that.
I just wanted that clarification to Chris's point. Thank you. Sorry, Chris. Where you?
Okay, thanks. The other point is on page 108, where there are some assumptions made about greenhouse gas emissions, which I think, and the conclusions reached, which I think are invalid. And the reasons for that are that you've assumed that there's one person per vehicle, and most vehicles I know can carry at least 3 or 4 people, which is fine. You then did a survey, 6.9 in the report, which says in that survey, 53% of the people could have driven, 30% of them would have gone as a passenger, and 39% would have used a coach. So 69% of the people would not have been in a solo vehicle, right? Which means that the conclusions reached are invalid in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. My assessment is that greenhouse gas emissions would have been halved if people use vehicles rather than use to.
So through the chair, it all does depend on the number of people who would have otherwise travelled by private car, or indeed wouldn't have travelled at all. So figures in the end of trial review report are, in my view, relatively conservative, because some people would say that every to Huia trip would have otherwise been made in a private car, which I don't believe to be the case. So like all these assumptions, they need to be tested. Ultimately, it's a matter of opinion as to whether those numbers are too high or low. But what I'm not trying to do is claim that every single trip that is made onto Huia is taking one off the road, because I don't believe that to be the case.
Mr. Chair, we actually did a survey, 6.9. I know it's not in here, and I was going to leave it, but because these comments are carried over into our agenda, I don't believe the conclusions reached are valid. It's quite simple. If we carry out a survey, then we should use the results of that survey for our assessments and what we're reporting to external parties. Otherwise, why do the survey?
Warren, if I can just...
Has that survey that Councillor Hughes is raising been the basis of these figures we're seeing in front of us, or where? So I guess where is the information source from?
So through the chair, the information about the impact of Te Huia on greenhouse gases originally comes from both Kiwi Rail and Ministry of the Environment. So their analysis, which we reported in the 2-year review document 2 years ago, was that each service needs to have a minimum of 55 people on it to offset the greenhouse gases as a result of the train running. So in the end of trial review report, what we've done is analysed each year to see how many people have actually used the train on each journey. And as you will see, it has varied. So in 2025, because the levels of passenger demand went down for various reasons, the performance in environmental terms is certainly not as good as it was in previous years. So that's the basis of the figures. As we've discussed, it does depend on certain assumptions around things like car occupancy. What we're not claiming, I think, is that Huia is on its own saving the planet or making a massive contribution, but it is doing something to help. And clearly, if we go down the route of getting more people on the train and having trains that are not diesel, then that environmental performance will improve.
Thank you.
Just following on the same vein, if I can come straight, because it's exactly the same topic. I do question the numbers because, the latest data I got, the Te Hui used 508,520 litres of diesel, and then you take that, even if the assumption is 70,000 passengers, it's 7.25 litres per passenger. So you're actually using, that's for 114k average trip as well. So you're actually using, I'd say, as much, if not more, fuel and diesel as opposed to petrol than a single person trip car. So, I really question your numbers at all, or the assumptions within there. They just don't seem to measure.
So I think potentially going forward, and if this motion goes through, that we accept the trial extension, what councillors are looking for is assurance that the most up-to-date and relative figures will be used in any business case that goes forward. So I see nodding, and I'm sure Phil's writing it down as I speak, that will be the case, and that councillors can have confidence that we are using the most up-to-date facts and figures. Thank you. I've got a couple more, Ben, and then I'll go to Gary.
Yeah, a couple of points. So in our earlier minutes, we've had letters from Hamilton, Waikato and Waipa mayors supporting this one-year extension. Obviously, there's support from those who think that this benefits their cities and districts. Did Auckland provide a letter of support?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Did the same general vein,
Yes.
that willing to contribute funds, or just we support the idea?
It didn't go quite that
Nice.
far, but
Nice try.
Yep. Second thing is fare box recovery. In here it's at 17.9, and I see in our annual plan it's due to go up to 18.3. Comments?
so the numbers in the annual plan relate to all of our public transport across the
Okay.
region. The numbers for Te Hui are specifically related to those that are within the business case originally. So we're reporting on those slightly differently.
And I think Noel raised an important point in terms of the timeframes for future decisions. So if we're still here at the LTP next year, and the trial has been concluded and a report submitted, will we be making a decision on council funds moving forward for the next 10 years, in long term? And will that clash with the regional land transport plan and its timing? When is the regional land transport plan decided? April, May, June?
So this occurs every 3 years, and the requirements for the regional land transport plan are different from those that every council follows for its long-term plan. The Regional Transport Committee has a task to develop a plan and consult on it, usually before Christmas or over Christmas, and then has hearings, deliberations, decisions, and off the top of my head, I believe it is at the latest the end of May that the final regional council approved regional land transport plan has to be submitted to the Director of Land Transport for NZTA. So that has to occur a month earlier than every council in the country adopts its long-term plan. And that's the issue that we have every 3 years with this cycle.
Okay,
So the prioritised programme that is included for everything that occurs for transport across the region, including reseals and safety programmes and trains, is all based on an indicative position from each council in terms of the contents of its long-term plan at that point. And in the same way that NZTA doesn't approve everything, councils don't approve everything. So there's a rejuggling that goes on between July and September, usually in that 3-year period, where the things that each party has funded or prioritised are reassessed. Now you'll be aware that in 2024 decisions, things like the funding for low cost, low risk new bus routes was not approved. We had approved the funding for that in our long-term plan, and you'll be aware that in every annual plan since, we've been through an adjustment process where the dollars that were assigned to that program are removed from our annual plan consideration each year, and the report in front of you today is no different. So that's just a process that occurs with these offset dates, unfortunately, through the period.
Yes, I'm just trying to clarify. So at the moment in this year, if we had not got a 60% FAR rate coming through, we would have been expecting a report by April from NZTA about their decision on long-term funding. We would have then had to go out to consultation between then and end of June. So you're saying that it's even more fraught next year with a regional land transport plan?
Yes. The anomaly with Te Huia being a 5-year trial and starting late and then having all of these times where it hasn't run is that the decision was in front of you, if you don't proceed with this decision but go into the annual plan decision, and from the agency's perspective, why they need a board meeting in April is because everything is mid-cycle rather than at that 3-year rotation, and it's far easier for everything to be considered together as part of that 3-year rotation. And that may be part of the reason the agency have supported this 1-year extension, is so that everything can be included within that normal process. And all of the other reasons as well.
So when will we know whether they deem this 1-year trial successful? June next year, February next year?
As things currently stand, we would be looking for them to include rail within what's called the continuous program, and that would be decided in June next year. But notwithstanding the comments that have been made ahead of trying, in terms of trying to get an earlier indicative decision from them via a board meeting earlier than June.
Because we would need one in April, really, to be able to go to the long-term plan and get consultation.
Yes, but the same thing applies, as I said, to things like the package of new bus routes that you consider and approve through the LTP, and you consulted on those. Then they were not funded by NZTA later on. But it's everything is just managed this way in the world of transport. Unfortunately, it's a complex.
So Phil, can I just clarify? So consultation will be required one way or the other in our long-term plan.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, Gary.
Being that our ratepayers are being asked to dip into their pockets and for us to support it, whether we do or not, has there been an allocation in the budget allowed for building rail stations at Tikawata?
You've read the report, Gary, there's not. So we're rehashing stuff. You've got a full report in front of you.
Yep.
That states exactly what is on the table today. But yeah.
Also make it.
I'm happy to hear your point, but it's clearly not in here. So,
yeah. Well, the point mainly is that they're being asked, or the ratepayers in the north being asked to support a proposal that does not stop it there, gives them no benefit.
The current trial, yeah.
So
future services, etc., potentially will come up when that's looked at. Yeah.
Because what we were told was that that would be many years away before they actually build stations in Tikawata, Pocono and Tuakau, which are the 3 areas that were screaming out for the rail, but without it, won't be getting support from the north.
Yeah, Chris.
Can I just support the chair? That will be relevant to if there's to be a future of Te Huia beyond this 1-year functional trial.
This is Keith going forward. Keith put a comment in the chat, which I'll just get Dave to read out. Thanks, Dave.
Councillor Holmes is seeking clarification. Is the ratepayer subsidy for Te Huia fully funded by Hamilton and Waikato District Council ratepayers?
Yes, as I've said already, yes.
Thank you.
Can make an exception.
Gary Raymer.
Um, can we also just have a clear definition of what success is? You know, and so you set your targets and say you measure, you meet your targets, but who's having input into what the targets are and how they are set? And so we need a clear definition of what is success. And also, can I have an opinion on whether, if we're going to run a trial, will we also try and have a meaningful fare to reflect the real cost of transport? So it's not an 83% subsidy, and it can come to a far more realistic number. So if we're going to run a trial, we need a proper trial with proper fare prices, and then clear definitions of success.
So if I can just get you to outline here, James, for councillors. Now, this has been a long ongoing trial process. Targets have been set in the past. So if you can just outline for the councillors where those targets have come from, what they mean, and any ability to adjust fares, I think is what the councillor is asking.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair, most of the targets that are described in the end of trial review report were set as part of the original single stage business case in 2018. Those targets went before the NZTA board in both 2018 and 2019, and the funding was allocated on the basis that there would be both an interim review of performance and also an end of trial review of performance, which is where we are now. The one exception is that the stretch targets of 400 passengers average per weekday subsequently added in 2022. And as described in the end of trial review, the interim report of Huia 2 years ago, the discussion at the time was that NZTA wanted to see more passengers on the train, which is ultimately the main measure of success. It's bums on seats. The view at the time from the regional council was that to get to that stretch target would require additional investment to make the service more attractive for people to use. But nevertheless, the decision was made at the time to agree to work towards that stretch target of 400. And as you will see from the end of trial review report, that's the one target that to date we haven't really been able to get particularly close to meeting. So that's really the context. But the original business case target set in 2018, the exception of the punctuality, all of the others have been. Sorry, in fares. I beg your pardon.
I've got a speaking order. If I can just get
fares. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. My bad. So in terms of fares, yes, we are very, very conscious that every public transport service needs to raise as much revenue as possible from users or third parties, and that's a clear government direction. In terms of the immediate trial, it is likely, although this will need to be discussed, that there will be a further increase to fares broadly in line with what happens at regional level with bus services. The key question, I guess, is what happens if the trial becomes a permanent service. We may well wish to look at different options, not only for your standard fare, maybe increasing that, but also offering discounts on trains we know are perhaps not as busy as other trains, because at the moment it's just a flat fare, and we don't, unlike the airlines, for example, undertake any kind of yield management approach where you'll look ahead and say, well, these sorts of services, we might actually offer a deal, a lower fare to get people on it, and perhaps on these very popular services, we might actually price them higher because people want to travel at that time. So I think looking forward, we can be a lot more sophisticated about how we manage our fares policy, but that is something that would have to come only when we get to the situation of a permanent service. But I fully agree that we should be looking to maximise the level of revenue from passengers that we possibly can.
Yeah. Quickly, thank you, Gary.
Yes, thank you for that, James, because that's better than what I got from Phil, to be honest. Phil, the objective is not, as you said, bums on seats. We need to actually make some money here. And so if you just want bums on seats, you'll have a free train and you'll get your bums on seats. So bums on seats is not the point. It is about profit.
Chris.
Yeah, look, I've got my point basically the same as what Gary's going.
Yeah, we'll move on.
Have that discussion. Just want to go back to the point that Gary raised about putting extra stations. It's not possible. We will never connect through into Auckland City. We've put more stations. It's marginal now, as I understand it. So that's really not an option.
Something that will be looked at in the future, no doubt, if it continues. Angela.
Yeah,
And then I've got Noel and Liz, and then I'm finishing up.
thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, James. Thank you, Phil and team, for all the incredible work that has been done on this project, and a big thanks to NZTA board for their decision. My understanding of the recommendation is pretty straightforward. Either we do the 60% to accept it, move on. We enact the other more expensive process through the annual plan. What I'm hearing also around the room is that we're all on the same page. We want, if we choose to accept the 60%, that we want to make it better. So through all the work that has been done around times, fare box recovery, obviously if we get bums on seats, we get people paying for those bums on seats, then that subsidy goes down and our fare box recovery goes up. Not sure about the profit, as no public transport anywhere in the world makes a profit per se, but in order for it to be more financially viable, I think we're all on the same page, seeing that patronage growth, etc. So yeah, really looking if this does go through, that yeah, we're turning our minds to how we can make it better, and in future have those conversations about stations in the north, because I know that we beginning of last triennial, for those who came along, we did look at station sites in those 3 locations. So work has been done. So just to give you that reassurance. Maguire, sorry. So many Garys. Thank you.
Yeah, Angela. No.
When the service was being initiated, Waikato District provided money in the LTP for a station at Tuakau. The NZ Rail and others came back and said, no, it's 7 minutes a station. We don't want 4 in the Waikato District. You're getting 1. It's at Huntly. We moved the money from Tuakau to build the platform at Huntly. And the business cases, while they may stack up for providing a service, for every stop, it's 7 more minutes, and that would be an extra 21 minutes before the train hit Auckland. Swings and roundabouts. Be careful what you ask for. Thank you.
Liz.
Yeah, look, thanks everyone. Look, for me, this is actually pretty simple. So for me, the region has signalled its preference through its district councils, and now we have a firm commitment from NZTA with the 60% funding rate. So for me, it's simple. We carry on for another year. So with this commitment in place, I guess the next 12 months is what everyone's kind of looking at, and patronage is really the only key signal of success. That's keeping it very, very simple in my view. So increasing passenger numbers probably has to be viewed in my mind as more of a regional approach. It's an economic development and it's a growth opportunity. That's how I see it. So the regional growth is a real opportunity, and I think it's probably time to consider some fresh thinking around this. Looking at some of our existing budgets, some of the partnerships we could be utilising. Let's look at some promotional channels, targeted promotion, employer engagement. Have we looked at that? I'm not sure. But also the tourism alignment in this space as well. So we've got a year, and then we need to reconsider, obviously got a big decision in that time. So what I'm asking for is some fresh thinking around how we look at this. The region has already expressed its it's preference to look at the 1 year extension. And I think for me, it's simple. We support it and we carry on. That's all I have to say.
Are you looking to move?
I've got a foreshadowed amendment.
1 and 2. Just hang on. Thank you, Ben. Are you looking to move points 1 and 2 in the motion?
Sure.
Thank you. We have a mover in that space. Ben, have you got something to
Foreshadowed
Happy
amendment.
to second that.
See, I'm not able to speak, so foreshadowed amendment. I want us to add to item 2A that council commits to an end-of-year trial review completed by February 2027 and seeks an NZTA decision by April 2027 on the future of the service. I notice here that we have an end-of-trial review report in February 2026. We've gone through this process. We've been able to make early requests of NZTA, and I think it's important that we get to make a decision by June 2027 rather than have it extended.
Mr. Chair, I'd support that insofar as we need to have the scenario that I'm thinking, if we don't get what we're asking for, is that the train will stop until NZTA if we want to support it, and they are going to support it. But if they come up with a decision after 30 June, well after we've done our long-term plan, well then the train stops because we've got no funding. So we don't want that scenario if it's continuing. If it's not continuing, well, it doesn't matter.
So just for clarity around those timings, Phil, are we stuck in stone? As I indicated earlier, and you agreed that this would go out to consultation anyway in a long-term plan. So we need to go out to consultation. We will have some facts and figures to that date when we go out to consultation.
Yep. So the interim 2-year review that James authored was produced using data to the end of December of that year. The report in front of you today includes an update to that to the end of December last year. We will easily be able to update the data for another 12 months and issue another report at this time of the year next year. The dates themselves, yes, there would definitely be a consultation with the community as part of next year's long-term plan process, and that would include the data from this. Picking up your other comment, your resolution my recommendation would be need to say that you request the agency board considers this earlier.
Yes.
You won't be able to.
I said seeks. Yeah.
So Dave's just asking to read that amendment.
That council commits to an end of trial review completed by February 2027 and requests an NZTA decision requests by April 2027 on the continuation of the service, which is exactly the same process we followed this year. It's just otherwise our recommendation is we simply approve a 1-year extension to 30th of June 2027, and the decision might not be made till July.
I agree, and just from remembering the training of coming up with resolutions, it's really good to put your reason in. So if you wanted to add to simplify the long-term plan process or something like that.
So that consultation be undertaken.
Because that would then be quite clear to NZTA why we're requesting.
Yep.
So
anyone.
So at the end of that, to inform our long-term process.
Long-term plan process, yeah.
Yeah. To align. Align with the process, because consultation. Just going to ask Ben whether you'd be happy to ask the mover and seconder to make that part of theirs to ease the.
So that's where we're going next.
Yeah.
So Liz and Tipper, are you happy with that amendment to the motion? So I have confirmation from the mover. Tipper online, are you happy? Sorry, thumbs up. Thank you. So it's going in there. Okay, so
look, I've just been discussing with Janine about that April date to enable consultation in the LTP. And I'm just trying to get Janine to think about it, because if they make a decision, say on March the 31st, it's quite late in the piece, because council will be trying to finalise
Consultation docs.
its position in February. Janine, have you got any other comment on that? It's I'm just wondering if you'd prefer it to be by March or something like that instead of.
Just say an earlier date.
So if I can get lights off, thanks. So I can get Janine a microphone, thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. So I think in this space we're sort of between a rock and a hard place in terms of the extension of the trial, I think, to April 2027. I think while funding is to 30th of June, effectively to bring forward that end of trial review by 2 months. From an LTP perspective, as Chris has indicated, we would normally be around this table making decisions in February, and we would be out consulting in April with an audit process happening in the middle around consultation documents and assumptions and all of that. So a March decision from NZTA would be most useful for that. It's still reasonably late in our timelines, but I'm just not sure how that rests from on the NZTA side in terms of the extension of the trial that they've approved in order to actually inform that decision.
Ask a clarification of Janine.
Yes.
So Janine, is it possible, because I'm really suspicious we won't get the information that we want from NZTA, that we put a proviso in, like, here's scenario A, if was the funding, blah, 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 and it goes, or if that's not provided, this is the alternate. Yeah, so we'll either or.
Yeah.
In the LTP?
Through the chair, yes, we can do that with with identifying council's preferred option. I mean, you need to identify a preferred option. We would just need to think really carefully around how we construct that consultation question in terms of where we're at, decisions that we're seeking, the dependencies of that, but what the potential pathways of outcomes could be.
Thank you, Janine. We have a motion in it, and I'm going to put it. What I would just like to outline for the PT department is that it would be beneficial for us to see that the December review as soon as able to help get our heads around and any further questions that may need to come to us when you bring it to us in February. So just like the more we are across this, the more we'll be able to make an informed decision as we move into that LTP process. So we have a motion in front of us that has been moved by Councillor Stoic and seconded by Councillor Mahuta. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, so it should be, number two should just be that councillors approve.
Well, currently, when this paper was brought to us, we didn't have that approval. So we are subsequent to it being approved. We're subsequent to it. Anyway.
Means the same thing.
So I'll go back to those movers and seconders. This is the last time that we're adopting, that we're altering this on the fly. So as it reads there, you're happy with it? There is too. Thank you. All those, we have division called. I believe Councillor Hughes called division. Thank you, Dave, if you can work through.
Hi, councillors. For those of you that may not have been through this process before, a division has been called. I will call your names one at a time. Can you please turn on your mics and clearly indicate whether you support, oppose or abstain from the motion before us? At the conclusion of that division, I will tell you the result and the number of votes received for each. And we'll start with Councillor Hughes.
Oppose.
Councillor Marr,
Support.
Councillor Mahuta,
Support.
Councillor Maguire,
Support.
Councillor Nicol,
Support.
Councillor Raymer,
Oppose.
Councillor Smith, Councillor Stolwick,
Support.
Councillor Strange,
Support.
Councillor Cookson,
Support.
Councillor Downard,
Support.
Councillor Dunbar Smith,
Support.
Councillor Hodge, Councillor Holmes.
Support.
The motion is carried, 11 votes in favour, 2 opposed and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil and James. We are a little bit of ahead of schedule, so we will jump up to the draft Waikato Triennial Agreement for 2025 to 2028. We have Karen presenting us this.
Is it in the book?
Yes, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Page 180 in your agenda. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Morning, councillors. I'll take the paper as read, but just to touch on a few points. The paper is here to allow councillors to actually review, consider and endorse the chairman to take Waikato Regional Council's viewpoints to the Mayoral Forum on the 2nd of March. The Mayoral Forum is considering this document at that time, and any changes will then be brought back again to this council for final adoption, we hope, at the end of March, but it does depend how quickly it gets around all 12 councils. So just very briefly, the Triennial Agreement is actually a requirement of the Local Government Act 2002, and it requires all local authorities in a region to enter into a triennial agreement before the 1st of March following the elections. Now, on this occasion, by agreement, and because our Mayoral Forum and the Chair have actually been focusing on discussions about the simplifying local government and the various other changes to legislation and making submissions on those. So by agreement, they've decided that we can have this adopted as close as possible after that 1st of March date. In short, it has protocols and processes for collaboration and communication, but additionally, our Waikato Mayoral Forum identifies key work streams that the councils want to work on together, and these are in your paper. They've identified 4 at this stage, but certainly not limited to 4 if discussions suggest perhaps there are other areas that should be a focus. So the first one, responding to and capitalising on opportunities arising from local government reforms. Number 2, advancing a city and regional deal, building on positive feedback from the region's initial proposal and leveraging strengths in water, energy, and intergovernmental collaboration. Strengthening collaboration established through the region's response primarily to the water reform initiatives, but there are other examples. And collaboration on the development of a regional spatial plan to guide long-term land use and infrastructure planning. The Triennial Agreement allows for a shared vision and work program to position this region as an attractive destination for families, tourists, students, and investment. The focus on strategic alignment collectively, progress and accountability has structure through the Mayoral Forum and the Chief Executives as key advisors to the Mayoral Forum, supported by staff working groups. just draw your attention to section 16. This in the triennial agreement, it actually outlines the section 16 requirements. And that means if regional council wants to introduce a new activity or a regional council controlled organisation wants to introduce a new activity, this must be consulted upon with all the other signatories to the agreement. So that is a requirement by law. Our councils recognise that this is a truly collaborative agreement, though, and there are wider agreements that if other councils choose to club together to do things, they must also share that information. So that's the agreement. It has worked effectively to date in terms of communication and collaboration. It's here for your comment and to enable the chair to take these comments back to ensure a regional council viewpoint is shared on Monday. Any changes and conversations that are had, the chair will bring back our next meeting. Should there be a finalised document for adoption? Leave it there, Chair.
Thank you, Karen. And just very, very quickly, is there anything substantial that has changed in this one previous to the, in comparison to the previous one?
No, so what the process
just for our
was a
information.
thorough review of the previous document. That was undertaken by a council staff group, a number of different councils, led by Chief Executive of South Waikato District, who was reporting through to her Chief Executive colleagues. The key changes are the 4 priority areas of focus, and also the strategic context has changed in the last 3 years. The actual means of communication, the processes and protocols have worked for the communities that we serve and for the leaders of those communities. So they have been pretty much unchanged.
Thanks, Karen. So I've got a speaking order. Jennifer, Noel, Liz, Ben, and then Tipper. So go to Jennifer.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Karen. This is one of those documents you see once at the start and you don't see it again kind of thing, but I do really appreciate that we're commenting on a draft agreement rather than just having the final land with us, how it felt. Maybe that was my early years. It's all very technically correct, and it's interesting you say that it's been working well. One thing I'd really like to challenge the mayors and the chair with it is to monitor over time that it is being adhered to for themselves, perhaps in their own meetings, maybe once a year, just to see that that is up to date and working. Because last time we did have the waters reforms come along, and things just kind of got really busy, and they were. It's great to see the Mayoral Forum maturing as well, because they were able to focus on that one thing, and we've got a really good outcome with Waikato Waters. And here you're proposing 4 things for them to focus on, and I know many of them campaigned on shared services as well. It's good to see some avenues there, but the thing I'd really like to see is the Mayoral Forum taking this and making it their own. It's kind of like the code of conduct, like it's very technically accurate. They could make it their own and own it, that would be great, because I'm keen to see some real leadership from the mayors to have that Waikato voice. And I see there's a point in their 19F to invite government ministers. I mean, I would really like to see MPs and opposition spokespeople or local MPs really involved with that, so they are governing together for this area more than they have in the past, is what I'm really saying. And then the transparency of it. I know it had a website in the past. How it says here there will be agendas and minutes taken and circulated. It doesn't specify to whom, and I know that it's been quite mixed in the past, which mayors or chair will share with their council. It's been a bugbear of many councillors when I meet them at LGNZ Zone 2, that they have different amounts of information of what's going on. And if we want that one Waikato voice, what's our pathway to demonstrate that? So the Mayoral Forum could give that some thought. That would be really great. Thank you.
Can I just come to Chris just for a bit of a comment, Chris, on the attendance of MPs, etc., at the Mayoral Forum, and just to Jen's comment, just you're the only one in the room that's been to previous ones.
I don't think there's been many at all. Actually, it's the chair of the Mayoral Forum, usually sets the agenda. I'm just trying to reflect whether I can remember any.
Comes from feeling like they have individual relationships with some of these people, but I believe there would be benefit in getting them together all at once, especially with all the CTB talk. Thank you.
Yeah, Noel.
Yeah, like all things, it comes down to the individuals around the table. To me, this is the document that's prescribed in legislation. It's been required to be done at the beginning of the triennium, and from my 7th term, it's a document that probably doesn't see the light of day between the 3 years when it's signed off and it goes in the bottom drawer and they get on with the job. So, look, it's a matter of rubber stamping this and getting on with it. So I'll move it, sir.
Thank you, Noel. Liz.
My comments are going to be on a similar vein, actually, no, but I'm just going to add that I have full confidence in our chair in representing the Waikato Regional Council. So with that, I will happily second it. Thanks.
Excellent.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Ben.
Firstly, I just want to congratulate you for having this great infographic here for a change. It's a big.
We're not on strategic plan, Ben. Keep up, please, on the triennial agreement.
Strategic direction?
No.
Oh, triennial direction.
It's all right, same face,
All right.
wrong item.
Get him on the back end.
I come to Tipper online.
No, I appreciate seeing it. I appreciate that in supporting this, we're supporting what our chair has to do in the room. But note, to your point, Noel, while this is a process like any other, we're in a time like no other with I guess, with the dissolution of this role. So I think it's like all my comments in this, we're very compliance focused when we could be creating the super region. So again, encourage us to either talk up to leadership or talk, if we're talking down to compliance, we should just all resign now. Kia ora.
Thank you, Tipper. Gary Roma.
Just a quick question. I saw it in funding. If there's a vote or if votes are taken here, are they done, are they weighted or are they just pure democracy?
With respect to the Mayoral Forum,
Yes.
so it has no statutory weight. So it is a collaborative, cooperative forum where regional decisions aren't taken, but they are discussed and then brought back to each council. There is a small amount of shared funding through CoLab to help fund work programs. And if we want to stand up, for example, a working group to support the Simplifying Local Government or our reform agenda for the region, there would then be a request to each council for a proportion of funding to fund that work program, which would be costed. So it's an advocacy group on behalf of the region that then comes back into councils. That's a fair way
I
to
think
describe
I
the
was asking
leadership.
too, is there a voting process that happens within the Mayoral Forum? And if is that what you're looking for, Gary? And whether there was
If there's an issue, like in any issue, say to Huia, if you wanted to use that as an example. So does every person in the Mayoral Forum, if they wanted to support it or decline it, have the same weight of the vote, or is it weighted per the region?
Population or something?
Yeah.
No, it would be the same weight, but they work by consensus. If you can't reach agreement, you keep talking.
I'd just reiterate what Karen said, that it's not really a decision-making forum. It is to give a signal of whether there's everybody agrees or not, that take back to individual councils to make decisions.
Thanks. Katarina.
I thought I heard you before, but you just need to correct me, that while we are in that forum, it doesn't stop Waikato Regional Council from having its own thoughts outside the forum, right?
No,
Yeah,
no,
just
that's
making sure.
understood and it is allowed for in that agreement.
Excellent.
Thanks, Katarina. And I'll just get Dave to read a comment from Keith online in the chat.
Councillor Holmes has made the comment that he has a concern we aren't tracking with a purely Waikato Inc. focus. As with Te Huia, we fall into the shadow of Auckland as being its submissive little brother.
I think we'll leave that comment there because I'm not sure whether Councillor has actually read the paper. So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Opposed? So carried. Right, thank you very much, Karen. Do you, council is looking for a break, or do you want to jump straight in? I know Ben's keen as mustard to get into that strategic direction.
Teachers ahead of us.
We potentially will, maybe a few minutes on this, Liz. I'm happy to be let. Okay, we'll break for 10 minutes. So if councillors staff could return by 5 past. It might have been a good time too. Righto, councillors, we'll get underway. Our next item is the adoption of the draft strategic direction for 26 to 36, and this is on page 192 of your agenda. And we'll go back down to Karen. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Is everyone, yeah, everyone's back. Thank you. So, councillors, you'll be aware that we've been through quite the process to get to this point. Starting in June last year, we started this process by bringing together analysis of the region's environment and its economy. We worked with community leaders to understand their context, situation, aspirations. We worked with subject matter experts to get deeper understanding of the issues and opportunities for our region. And then when you were elected in October, we had a series of workshops with you. The resulting Te Pai Tawhiti strategic direction for the 2026-2036 period clearly captures your directions and intentions to lift regional productivity and prosperity, safeguard natural resources, and adapt to economic and legislative changes. The 5 priorities reflect the strategic approaches you agreed to, from delivering core regional functions really well to being bold and visionary for science and tech, and shaping the region's strategic positioning for legislative and local government reform through co-creation and collaboration. What we've heard from you and reflected in the draft strategy includes the need to increase operational efficiencies and affordability, ensure value for money, be enabling, and leverage collective resources. You've asked us to integrate decision-making across environmental, social, and economic objectives to ensure balanced outcomes. We must ground our decisions in robust data, research, and stakeholder perspectives, values, and aspirations. And you want greater innovation and adaptability. Most recent workshop on the 5th of this month, you further refined your priorities, outcomes, approaches, and progress measures. These included being more explicit about governance of catchment services and the critical importance of flood management and drainage to this region. Deepening data and insights, asked us to include profitability alongside productivity and prosperity, and confirmed the importance of transport as a standalone priority. Additionally, following committee meetings this month, we also removed reference to carbon and biodiversity credits as one of the progress measures. Also, at the request of councillors, we reduced text and replaced a lot of that text about the context of the economy and the people of the region. We placed that as a graphic on pages 6 and 7 of the document. So in summary, the draft delivers clear messages about areas of focus, developing a future-fit organisation, enhancing regional productivity and prosperity, building community resilience to hazards, accelerating the protection and restoration of our natural environment, and optimising the region's transport system. These priorities will influence the long-term plan and your future funding decisions, and they signal continuity of essential services over the long term with specific deliverables for this triennium. Now, I'll be guided by you, Chair. Do you want to have a scroll through page by page, or do people, they have the document in front of them, do they just wish to comment? I'll take your direction.
I think we'll scroll through page by page, and that way we can any questions, comments, and then we can flip a page it and move through it that way.
Lovely.
I think.
So, Dave, we're in your hands to do the scrolling. Oh, yeah. Well, there's a mihi. You might want to read that in front of you. Now, we've been guided by our cultural experts and acknowledging very important people to our region in Māoridom. And I have noted a point to make a paragraph break after that first sentence.
Thank you. No questions on that one. So next one up, Dave.
Just a table of contents, an explanation of the brand tohu and the contents.
2 for 2. On to the third.
Context setting. Yes, still a lot of text, but I think important for you to position this document. You scroll down, you can see it over the 2 pages, where we throw in the vision. This is your revised vision. Thank you for that. The purpose and the values.
Karen, I think that has been well captured out of our workshops.
Thank you. And then you might want to spend some time on this, because this is the new piece where we removed a lot of words about who we are and what we do and offer to New Zealand, and provided you with a graphic representation of economic contribution.
Thanks, and really commend this. These 2 pages. Yeah, it's a really good identification of those things that are Waikato. So
And
yeah,
at this
I
point,
really like the way it's been presented to us in this form.
I have
So-
a question.
Yeah, sorry, Karen. Yes.
Tataraina.
Yeah, I tautoko te koro on. Engari, hei whē te awa. Where is the river? You got a big, beautiful, red, bright mark that I thought was the river, and I thought, why did it go to Auckland? But, you know, Waikato to Waikato people is the awa. It's not here. And why would we need to seek it out when it's the main trunk of understanding where we are and where we finish? Paul, you know, it may be in here, but it's not as bright as
Look, I think that's a good comment. There's a very thick road.
Yes.
And the awa needs to be stand out.
When it got to me now,
It's a very good
in the
point,
Waikato,
and
not
certainly
dismissing Hauraki at all.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you remember Piaku and Waikato.
Well, remember, it starts in Waikato, the Waiho, so I can't forget that.
point noted.
Yeah, the very point is that you have to go looking for it, I think, and so I think we've taken that on board. A valid point. Thank you, Katarina.
Valid.
So next one up is our priorities.
You offered some suggestions for changes. These have all been captured and are reflected here. And then we get into the detail, where we have the high-level headline of what we're wanting to achieve, the outcome, a description of the approach and the progress measures, and the parts of the organisation that will be primarily accountable for doing this work.
Ben.
Oh, just to say, I'm pleased to see the options for catchment sale governance mentioned there. I thought about, should it be mentioned further down in regional resilience, but it seems to fit there best. So,
No.
I may be remembering this wrongly, but didn't Tipper ask or raise the issue of the Maori economy to the value to the Waikato? I'm just not sure, and if Tipper wanted to clarify that for me. But have we sufficiently captured that, or do we intend to capture it?
I think Karen's got a comment around that.
No, it's noted at the top here on the graphics page, but if required, we can put further emphasis. I invite you to spend a lot more time with the picture.
Yeah.
Next one. We can certainly take that on board.
The chair, would that be an idea that?
I think Karen's just noted that, yeah. Just to make things stand out a little bit. Sometimes blue gets lost. Yeah.
Have you got anything to say to that?
Ben?
Oh, I just think it probably should be included in the graphic as well, maybe under the dairying or moved under other infrastructure or just, yeah, it's worth.
Yeah, we can do that.
Gary?
Yeah, so, why are we breaking out the Maori economy separately? Because it's part of all the other economies. It's part of forestry, it's part of dairy. So, it doesn't need to be isolated, or it's a subset of those other economies, but it's part of the total economy. That's why it's.
Yes, it is, but in saying that, we stand on our own. You know, if you look at Ruakura, look at what we're doing in the economy as Māori, we stand on our own. We do not need to be included in anything else, because the farming criteria, most of it is under trust farm. So personally, I think having this little bit at the top is not quite enough, because even in Hauraki, the oyster farms, the mussel farms, a lot of that are under Māori ownership, you know. So I think it's important, Gary, that there's a significant understanding of how much we put into this, because even the Crown today is saying that Māori economy is really important to the economy of New Zealand. But, you know, so it's important that it's recognised, especially in Waikato.
Thank you.
And it is well articulated in various avenues right around here. Yeah.
Building
Moving-
regional resilience, councillors. This is an area that you have had eyes on and great interest in. We have captured your direction to us, and you were discussing this morning about needing to be ready and responsive to emergencies, and this is one of your directions. Happy to move on?
Yes,
Thank
yep.
you.
No lights.
Sustaining natural resources. This is one where we've been encouraged to deliver core regional functions in exemplary fashion.
I have one more, sorry.
Yeah.
On the map, let me go back to it. It says the region's strengths are further supported by a growing Māori economy and the long-standing cultural region leadership of the Kingitanga. You might need to talk to Tapa on what that is, because of where Waikato sits within the Kingitanga, because a lot of our Māori economic is not based in that. So just recheck with Tipa on that wording. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I can
You want a degree
definitely
of
say,
comfort,
if you go to Tūwhare, they're going to ask you, why isn't our ariki in there? Because the economic up there, you know, just to be sure that we don't
Exclude
misinterpret
anybody or
interpret
misinterpret
what
it. Yeah.
that means.
We have previously been given
Well,
also like
but it's
authority
the
to say
right-
that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
we can certainly check again
Yeah,
before
just
we
check with her,
publish.
because I know that the university land belongs to, I don't know, it doesn't belong to the Kingitanga, but it belongs to Waikato Tainui. Ruakura belongs to them, a lot of the growth, but just ensure
Will do.
that it
Thank you
doesn't
for that guidance.
offend the ariki. Okay, thank you. One thing I do like is the measures. I think your measures are obtainable. No, you haven't made it a goal list about something one reaches. And I like that the progress measures are obtainable. So I think that's good. This is a living program too. Remember, I asked?
Yes.
You said yes. So we must move the goalposts as we reach certain areas.
Yes, and we will be reporting through committees.
Yep.
And we, as discussed last triennium,
Yep.
we will need to review and adjust the strategy as we go if circumstances change. Shall we move on? Oh, and this one continues because it is a critical area. And then
Only if you put your microphone on.
Where?
Waihel Springs, the Blue Springs, when it's, there's over 12,000 people go there a day.
Through that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and you've got popular sites there at the Waikato, and that's not even stated.
Oh.
Yeah.
Be- Because of Brent's father. That's a good question, though.
Can you use your microphone, please, councillor?
Mr. Chair, but I think there needs to be quantified what are popular sites a bit better than what those ones you've just said they are. Okay, thank you.
That's back on the map.
There's room for it, so that's fabulous. No.
Just the valuation of what those are needs to be quantified a bit better.
Absolutely right, and that was taken from our Hamilton and Waikato tourism and Hauraki. No, Coromandel, Hauraki as well. So from our tourism sites. Thank you.
Right, onto the sustaining natural resources page, which you've got the second half of that.
Yeah.
Right in front of you. That's all good.
Optimised transport.
Ben?
Yes, so the one that says the rail network investment program of 2027 includes actions and funding to resolve Waikato Rail build capacity. In the original draft, it just said resolve rail constraints and build capacity. I don't think we should reference the 2027 rail network investment program. I looked it up and it mainly talks about Wellington and Auckland, and it would be simply better to just what we originally had, resolve rail constraints and build rail capacity, so we're not locked into a central government document.
All right, so can I check in, please, through you, Chair? Is that an acceptable change to everyone around the table?
Phil, yeah, can I have a comment from you? Thanks, Phil.
The only comment I would make is that that document is where the funding for rail network investment is contained. So currently it does talk about Wellington and Auckland, but also the Upper North Island and Waikato's mentioned, but didn't get any funding. So the reason it's there is to sort of raise the profile of that. But your call at the end of the day.
Except I think we're locking into a document that, I mean, if we just talk about resolve rail constraints and build rail capacity, we're heading in that direction, but we're not constrained by something that doesn't mention us.
Well, that is the document where the funding would be determined.
Yeah, but then we're locked into a document that isn't here yet, because this is 2024 to 2027 document. So we're locking in a document that's not yet written. So
No, 24 to 27. So this is current. And so we anchored these measures wherever we could on current documents over the long term. So yes, there will be another one coming, but it would lead in. So this is the lead in to the next discussion.
what does Angela think?
Well, just to add that the electrification of the Golden Triangle bits that are missing is on train to, you know, it's coming up for funding as well in the near future, and that would help a lot. So yeah, I think it is important to keep the reference in with the current document, given GPS is under review soon, and yeah, who knows what might happen.
I'm not going into ditch on it. So
it sounds to me that I'm hearing there is relevance to leave it in there. Yep.
Okay. And the other one is in our original document, we talked about the number of unplanned state highways closures reduced by 10%. It's good that you've put in a qualifier as set out in the regional land transport plan, so that we've actually got a rationale for how that happens, because otherwise, if there are unplanned closures, how do you stop them happening?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it, councillors, if there's nothing further to comment on.
Thank you very much. So if I could just thank staff for the work behind that and the workshops. I think that's why we've moved through this document so swiftly this morning, is the fact that all the work that went in the workshops and the comments that came back from councillors that staff have actually picked up and included on. So thank you very much in that space.
Sorry, can I ask one question? I know I was at the workshops and stuff like that, but when you look at the strategic direction of Waikato, there's actually nothing in there about emergency and about emergency, because we are prone right now for all of that stuff, but there's in our strategic direction for our risk elimination or whatever, there's actually nothing in here about risk or what we would do if the whole of Waikato sunk or blah, blah, blah. So you could say to me, we don't need it in here because that's not a strategic direction. But at the end of the day, the majority of us, where we work, what we're doing, how we're living from day to day has been also looked at through the weather patterns of what's happening around us.
May I
just don't see.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
May I? Sorry, building
it there?
regional resilience, Katarina,
What
is,
page?
you're on page 11. That
Yes,
whole
ma'am.
section is about working with communities to ensure they understand risks. It's about having
We're gonna
people
go to-
ready, and it looks at our hazards and our climate risk and our flood infrastructure.
Okay, okay.
Okay, Noel?
Yeah, can I just say that this process has been far better than what we did last triennium, and congratulate staff on listening to councillors' concerns about how we develop the strategic direction. So happy to move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. As seconded, councillor Hodge. All those in favour? Opposed? So carried.
Thank you, and thank you, councillors, because actually it was your active engagement with staff that made the difference. And if I could also please thank the comm staff for their outstanding job and all the other staff who provided data and measures.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Well, we now have a resolution in front of us to move into public excluded and the public excluded agenda. If I could have a mover and a seconder, move into public excluded. Thank you, Chris. We're moving into public excluded to do the public excluded agenda.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the annual plan budget is part of the
No,
public. Okay, just.
we're coming back out of public
Oh, thank
excluded
you.
and doing that. So, Councillor Smith, Councillor Dunbar Smith, all those in favour? Opposed? So carried.